Hello, my YouTube friends. How you doing? I hope you are having a good Friday and getting ready to ease on into the weekend. Today, I want to talk to you all about how I pay my rent. Let me give you a little backstory. When I first came to Mexico back in December, I only planned on being here for a few months. My goal was to travel to other countries, whether that was Uruguay, Belize, Brazil, Peru, other places. Because I'm 72 and I wanted to see as much of the world as I possibly could for as long as I can. Okay. And so Mexico, Merida, Mexico was a soft landing for me. Now, I initially stayed in North Merida in a couple of Airbnbs, but I was paying over $1,000 a month for those Airbnbs. Part of my goal coming to Merida was to find me a dentist to do implants. Now, I researched three different dental practices and ended up at Dental, which included these two young dentists, and I've been extremely pleased with the work that they have provided. Unfortunately, getting implants takes longer than I had anticipated. The process takes months, which extended my stay here in Merida. Therefore, I had to find me a nice apartment. I found a real estate agency and a nice young attorney here in Merida that helped me through the process. And so I have a lovely, lovely, lovely studio apartment that I pay $750 a month. Okay. Um, then I had a nice referral to a local Mexican bank in order for me to convert my US dollars into pesos to pay my rent because most homeowners, landlords here in Merida, they do not accept US dollars. You either have to pay cash or some might take wire transfers. So since mine only took cash, I had to find a way to do wire transfers from my U.S. financial institution to Mexico. And because I had this local bank referral, I was able to do that. And with the local bank, I did not have to have residency because a lot of times, most of the time, in order to open up a bank account, you have to have your residency card. So now I have a local bank and I'm able to wire money from my U.S. financial institution to a bank in New York, contact my Mexican bank officer and let her know the money is there, and then she would do the conversion from the New York bank to the Mexican bank at the current exchange rate. And a lot of times she would wait until it was a good rate in order to give me the most amount in pesos. That was working just fine for months. Now, I don't get into politics. I just try not to get into politics, but the United States, from what I understand, has put sanctions on Mexico when it comes to banking. And so, therefore, the bank in New York stopped its contract with the local bank here in Mexico in order for U.S. citizens to be able to send wire transfers. Something about, what did they call it? Money laundering. Okay. And we don't know if that's politics or what the heck's going on. All I know for me as an individual, I was no longer able to do wire transfers in that process to the bank in New York in order for my Mexican banks to do that conversion. So now what? I gotta have pesos in order to pay my rent. I contacted my U.S. financial institution, and there are two ways to do a wire transfer. You can do a domestic wire transfer, which was working fine for me until this situation happened with the local bank and the bank in New York. So now I have to do international wire transfer. Here's where it got a little sticky for me today. In contacting my financial institution through, I believe it was the domestic wire transfer, which was my mistake. I should have contacted the international wire transfer area office. This office, the domestic wire transfer group, took me through hoops today for an hour and a half. They sent me to the wire risk department, wire risk. And in trying to transfer a small amount of money, they had me on the phone for an hour and a half, scrutinizing everything, asking me personal questions. They wanted to know who I was sending the money to. Why was I sending the money to them? Where am I? How often am I going to do these wire transfers? They may not be able to do it because of the sanctions that the current presidential administration has against the administration here in Mexico. So if you think you're not affected by what's going on in politics, think again. Now, if you're considering moving to Merida, Mexico, you need to figure out a way how you're going to pay your rent. Because now that I find that I have to be in Mexico for an extended period of time, I have an apartment. I have an agreement and I need to pay my rent. So how am I going to do that? And so I'm telling you, the feeling that I got from being scrutinized for an hour and a half made me feel like I was back in America. And I have a video on why I left America. Okay, so I know I trust my financial institution. I've had it for a long time, but this particular day, talking to this particular representative made me feel some kind of way. I was stressed. I was stressed out because we weren't talking about a whole lot of money, but the level of questions that she was asking me, scrutinizing, it made me feel really feel bad about this whole situation. After an hour and a half, she couldn't find my previous um, transfers because I had done it before. I had done international and I had done domestic. So the paperwork was there with all the information, and she claimed she couldn't find it. Finally, after she found it after an hour and a half, she then tells me I'm in the wrong department, that I need to be with the international transfer group. Okay. Now the thing of it is I know that having lived in America for as long as I have, sometimes we get these feelings of just, I don't even know how to describe it, but it puts you on the defense. You know that you need something from them. And so you can't get all bent out of shape and let your emotional take over. You have to remain in a business frame of mind because you need something. And that was the position that I had to take. Even though she was asking me all of these questions, um, who am I sending it to? What's their address? I can't find them, their office on the internet. How often are you going to do this? Why are you where you are? Some of these questions are none of your business. It's a simple wire transaction. Just send the money. But because she claims she's just doing her job, I had to temper myself. I had to calm myself down. Now, after she found the paperwork of the previous transactions, she then transfers me to the International Wire Transfer Group. Took 10 minutes, if not less, for them to conduct the business that I had spent an hour and a half previously with that other department. How much do you want? And that was the other thing. She asked me, well, what is the money for? That's none of your business what the money is for. Okay? But anyway, be that as it may, I finally got to the correct department and I was able to transfer that money where it needed to go in less than 10 minutes. So that brings me to 2 points that I want to make in this video. Because I hadn't planned on making this video today, but I felt like it was important, especially for people who are considering moving to Merida, Mexico. You need to consider getting your temporary residency, because with temporary residency, you would be able to use that residency card to open up a bank account. And you won't have any problems in transferring money to your account. Okay? I had not considered temporary residency because my plan was to move on to another country. Maybe get residency somewhere else, in Spain or somewhere, but not Mexico. But now that I know I have to be here for an extended period of time, I am working on getting my temporary residency. The other thing is, make sure that you have a financial plan on how you're going to pay your rent, your utilities, how are you going to buy groceries. I have credit cards, I have debit cards, okay? But for those situations where you need to pay in cash, you have to have pesos, okay? And so I'm feeling a little better now after I calmed down, because I'm telling you, I was like, how dare you? This is what I'm thinking to myself. How dare you ask me all of these questions, and trying to smile with it, and trying to make me feel like you're doing it on my behalf. I was trying to lean toward that way, that she's doing it for the protection of my money. But after an hour and a half and some of the questions that she was asking me, I didn't feel that way. It was those old feelings that I had living in America and having to deal with people who somehow feel like whatever it is that you're doing is something that they can't do. Okay? And I know I'm getting off on a tangent. Okay? But that's how I felt. And these are some of the things that living in America we go through. Okay? Post-traumatic slave syndrome, or post-traumatic trauma syndrome, or whatever you want to call it. But back to the business at hand. If you come in the Merida, Mexico, make sure you have your finances together. If you need a real estate agent to help you find a lovely house, a lovely apartment, I have a referral that I can give you. Also, there are videos, YouTube videos of others who live here, who have contacts with real estate agents. Check them out. Watch their videos. Get their contact information. Okay? But the other thing is, get your money right and make sure you have a solid process on how you're going to pay for things here in Merida in pesos. That's all I want to say. It's Friday, and I'm going to chill out for the rest of the day and for the rest of the weekend. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Okay? Peace out.